welcome to Oops All Dragons. It's us, it's me, it's Lisa. And that's
It's Faroon. Yeah, it's episode 4.
It's episode 4. Today we're talking about setting and how it's different from world building.
Yeah. Our
Setting,
pedantic
world building. Yeah.
our pedantic conversation we were just having.
Yeah. We decided to just stop talking to each other and hit record before we lose that precious content to the ether.
Mm-hmm. This one's gonna go out mainly for those folks who want to run their own homebrew game, but they don't want to be constrained by the Forgotten Realms or any of the existing worlds, and they want to set up their own thing, set up your own entire world, your own tiny little slice of one. The method that we're going to go through, while a bit unfortunately named, can scale as big or as small as you want it to.
Absolutely. So let's just get right into it, right? So you want to run your own campaign, but you're not like super attracted to the settings of that are sort of the base settings,
The defaults
put out there, the default settings, your Eberrons, your Forgotten Realms, and the whatnot. So you think, how hard can it be to just like make your own Middle Earth? It's as hard as you want it to be, is the short answer.
Yes.
Yeah, you can put as
That's
much work in it as you feel like putting into it. You can either fully just improv the whole thing as you go, which is not super recommended, but like...
Which I have done, and yes, from experience, I would not recommend flying by the seat of your pants, creating the entire world as you go.
Yeah, and then there's the complete opposite, where you have every inch of your map meticulously planned out.
And I've been a part of one of those, and that is also terrible.
I mean,
I'm not you.
Let's not shame. Let's not shame.
I mean the guy.
But it definitely you're doing way more work than you need to do if that's the way that you're going.
That's the important thing to get across.
That's
yes.
the bit of advice that we're trying to get there is that like you don't need to do all that. You're fine. You don't need to have every single inch meticulously plotted out, because then what is there for your players to do?
Most of the time you shouldn't. I know we mentioned this before. Yeah, if everything's already set in stone, then how do the players make an impact, really? Well, before we start, I want to give a shout out to the person that we got this method from, Dale Kingsmill, cool YouTuber, very good videos, and we'll be using her sperm method, SPERM.
It's a device. Don't worry about it.
It is a mnemonic device that will always be in your brain.
It'll stay in your head.
And yeah, but before we get into like what the mnemonic device means and all of that, there are a couple things you want to decide on. So I think the two major things, and I think you'll agree, Lisa, is size of whatever setting you're looking at, and then what aesthetic do you want to go for?
Yeah, definitely keeping scale in mind as you're doing your creation. Think about whether you are creating a town or a series of like principalities, a state, a continent, a country. Think of the scope of the landmass, literally, that you're working from. This is a mistake that I've run up on, and I'm even now still trying to like make adjustments for. So definitely keep scale in mind as you're going through this process.
I think one of the things you mentioned when we were talking about like the map of the world you created, like, man, this map is really big.
Yeah.
This map is huge.
Yeah. I used a map generator that like definitely it wants you to create a world. I'm like, no, less. I don't need all that. Give me something like walkable.
Yeah, you've been showing us like a world map at continent scale. So everything, if we actually measured it out, would be just hundreds of miles away.
Yeah, absolutely. You've somehow been traversing
Yeah,
this map
in like
in
days,
days, where it
just on
like
foot.
should really take weeks, and it's like, ugh, no, don't worry about it.
I'm just gonna change that legend in the little bottom right corner.
I'm gonna change the way physics works. Just don't worry about how distance works. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you 3 days to cross a section of 200 miles.
So before we go, because what we want to do is actually do it, actually create a setting on this podcast here, and we'll do two. We'll do like a big one, and we'll do a small one. But we'll actually talk through what the sperm method is. This is just what it is, and why you use sperm as an acronym, because it kind of covers all your bases. So, first letter, or I should say, every letter corresponds to a major facet of whatever the setting is. So S refers to society. So what type of society are we playing in? Is it, old fantasy, Conan, might makes right type of thing? Is it new and futuristic? Is it modern? Is it in, in time of recording the 2020s? Do you have technology? Do you not? How does and is there representative democracy? Generally, how does the society that we're playing in function? Is someone going to bat an eye if I cut someone down with a sword in the middle of the road? That type of thing.
And the key thing to remember when you're doing something like the sperm method, or just generally like starting to come up with ideas for a setting, is bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to write paragraphs. Bullet points
for every single one of these, for all of the sperm bullet points. Do not
general ideas.
A paragraph at most.
Yeah, start big, work your way small, work your way down to the details, because this is both to save you time, to help you better explain your setting if you can explain it in short bullet points, and also it'll save you the inevitable heartache when you have written this whole very intricate, very detailed story to go with some section of your setting, and your players never get to it, and you never get to share that with them. Just save yourself from that heartbreak. Bullet points.
Yeah. Start with the bullet points, because it's high level and always gives you room to expand.
Exactly.
So like I say, S, society. What type of society are we setting up here? And, depending on the scale, how does the town that we're in work? Or how does the world that we're creating work? The second one, politics. So every world, every village, every small little, collection of people has some version of politics. So again, is it a representative democracy in this world, or is it a giant dictatorship? Is it a monarchy? Are we living in a small town where everyone just kind of, it's communism, and everyone just kind of does the work together because they all need to survive? And then what are the politics of that? So what are the kind of strained relationships? What's the give and take? What is the what's the structure of power?
Yeah, and within that you can figure out, are there particular people who are in the roles of leaders? Are there people who don't particularly agree with the leaders and are working against them? That kind of stuff. You can figure out, who are the leaders in this setting, and who are, if there are any, dissidents.
Yeah. Are there factions, and are two factions butting heads, and that's the focus of what the campaign's going to be?
Yeah. Is
it one a rebel?
Is this Verona, and you have the Capulets and the Montagues?
Exactly. So politics, and we'll dig into that in a minute. Economics. So money makes the world go round. except in Star Trek. Except sometimes it does. But look at the Ferengi.
Except sometimes it does.
Yeah, but in any sort of setting, just to quantify how commerce happens, uh, there has to be some sort of economy. In most medieval settings, it's gold or silver, precious metals, jewels, that type of thing. But are you going to get really crazy and say there's very high? Are we working at the world, and are the players working at very high level economics where the where they're trading essentially power between factions, and that's the currency there, or are we very like post-apocalyptic and money, paper or metal money doesn't have any value, and it's more about survival? Does water and food carry more weight than that sort of thing? That's going to say, all right, what do they care about? What does the party care about carrying, and what does the party just leave by the side of the road?
The default is usually to go with like a gold economy, and that is perfectly okay. Just figure out for yourself, or if you want to just go based on what the existing sources for D&D have it, and as far as like the value of a gold piece, what can a gold piece or a silver piece buy you? Do you even call them gold pieces or silver pieces? Do you want to come up with different like money names? Do you want to use fucking dinars? I don't know.
Crowns or something like that.
Pesos.
Sure. What I was going to mention before is in reference to like your game, we may have another currency on top of the normal kind of gold exchange where it's a very rare currency, magical, kind of MacGuffin-y. So if you're able to get your hands on it, then you're able to trade that for things that maybe gold doesn't get you.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. I put it in my own campaign. I didn't think of that.
Okay.
You could absolutely use the magic crystals as currency.
Yeah. Do you think I'm not just gonna hold on to those until the right moment?
I mean, like, my immediate thought is like you get this like magic crystal that can be used to replace material components and spells. My first thought is not to maybe this just I have mage brain and I've only ever played mages, so my mage brain goes, yeah, I gotta save that so I can use it for magic.
Oh hell no! Martial brain is like,
no.
This is money.
This is money. This is worth something. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so that's economics. Then religion. What sort of religions are in this world, if any? Is it is it a post-apocalyptic world where maybe there are no gods, people don't believe in the gods anymore, or is it a very pious world where it's monotheistic and there's one single god, single church everywhere, or is it multiple gods, very very polytheistic, like normal D&D is, where the players can kind of choose which deity they follow based on their alignment, or what sort of domain they fall under, and that
for aesthetics.
Or for aesthetics, and that'll color, what the belief systems are. Again, is the world of might makes right backed up by the fact that God says so, that everyone follows the war gods and you've got to be the winner. So that's how the world works.
And within that, there's also the choice of, okay, do I want to go with the like fantasy pantheon of the Forbidden Realms, your Pelors and Raven Queens and Sehanines and such, or do I want to pull from like mythology, in like ancient human religions, get like Thor in here, and Loki is your trickster god, and like Freya's here, look at her go. Like these are choices that you get to make when you decide to make your own setting like this.
Yeah, when you're deciding on religion, or create your own set of gods, completely new and fresh.
So much extra work, though. Oh my god! But hey, if you want to do that, go off.
Just like you can create characters all day long, other people can possibly create, gods.
Okay. You accuse me of being able to make characters all day long, but I've been playing the same 4 characters, just recycling them.
Okay. And then the last one is military. So, who is the actual, boots on the ground force for presumably a justice, but also, fighting the wars? Are they the police? Are they the town guard? Is it the king's army? Are they good? Are they bad? Is it so sprawling that there are good and bad folks within it? Um, do they have a code of honor and that's what they operate on? Or is it all just a giant mercenary army and they'll go to the highest bidder? And
Or
oh,
if the
mhm.
setting that you are creating is something on the small scale, like a tavern, an inn, a city, is it just like the toughest dude in town?
Yeah, yeah. If you're
Is it just the
focusing on the
bouncer?
town,
Is
yeah,
it
like
just the bouncer?
the bouncer in the tavern, the hunter who just came back from the hunt. He's the best fighter in the town, just because he deals with like hunting and tracking animals.
Is it the in an old west town, is it the sheriff?
Mm-hmm.
The new guy who just rolled into town and the old sheriff is dead and now the new guy's the sheriff. And he has to, I don't know, fight Doc Holliday or something.
Doc
I
Holliday
don't
was the
know.
good guy.
Wait, which one was the uh,
He
listen.
has to fight
I don't
Billy
know
the
about it.
Kid.
No. I don't know. Depends on which western you watch. But either way, there's some shit going down at the OK Corral.
Yeah, I think Wyatt Earp was a good guy. I think Billy the Kid was a bad guy.
Was it?
A bandito at least.
Well, uh, uh, okay, that's for a different podcast. We'll get into it.
Talking about cowboys, and how neither one of us know a whole lot about cowboys. Uh,
Listen, talk about it.
okay, so that's the sperm method in a nutshell. And what we'll do, we'll create a couple settings with them, and go ahead. Feel free to use these settings. Uh, this is all for the fans, for public consumption, and along with these points that you come up with when you create your world, come up with one, usually just one, maybe one or two more names, a few NPCs that correspond to each point. So so on the religion side, who's the priest? On the military side, who's the sheriff? On the economic side, like who's the big merchant? Um, Give a few names and NPCs that correspond to these things, so that if the players have any questions about these things in the world, or they need someone to talk to about, the finding a altar to their god within the town, they know who to go to. You have the name right there, ready to go, and you're not scrambling to create them, and you already have kind of the general framework of the world, and making them feel like it's real.
Yeah, and this is where my best friend, my favorite website, the tab that stays open at all times on my computer, comes in. Fucking
Fantasy name
fantasynamesgenerator.com.
generator.
Yeah.
It is a great resource. I have no idea who created it or who
It's
maintains
been
it,
around for so long because
and they just keep updating it.
I remember back in the days, back when I used to do shamefully cringe culture's dead. When I used to write fan fiction and like I would have to come up with names for people and just fantasy name generator. Just I've been a big fan of them for over a decade at this point.
Yep. A little less so for me. I just really got to that website when I started doing, D&D, Pathfinder, that sort of thing, and found that, like, damn, the players keep asking, like, hey, what's this guy's name that we're talking to? Hey, what's the bartender's name? I don't know. Name generator, give me. Instead of naming him Boblin the Goblin, which we've used in this podcast, and I think in a game at some point. So between you and I, Lisa, we're doing this like off the top of the dome. We haven't prepared anything. We're just gonna session zero collaborate on creating a few settings here. So first thing, let's do a small one. So let's say we're creating a small town that the players are going to start in. It's going to be their first quest, and then if and when they get done with that, they'll move out into the bigger world. So we need to focus on the town. So I'll ask you, because you are the encyclopedia of aesthetics. What sort of aesthetic we going for here?
Uh, let's go. Let's go. Florida Kitsch, Key West, Margaritaville,
Okay.
Town.
Okay, I was gonna say a medieval like D&D setting in Margaritaville, but Ocean Town, yes, sure. And so do we want to make it like, yeah, do we want to make it like a laid back type of beachy situation, Parts of the Caribbean ish?
Yes, I'm almost thinking like, um, I'm thinking a town that is maybe populated by like Tritons, fish people, but also like
Mm-hmm.
humans, sea elves. I don't know. It's a seafaring town. Part of the town is maybe submerged. Part of the town is on the shore.
Okay.
Go for like a advanced Little Mermaid. Oh no, here's what it is. It's Disney Tokyo, where it's like all ocean themed. You know what I'm talking about? I'm good. I'm
Not
good.
been to Disney Tokyo. I haven't even
Neither have I. Do you
seen.
think I've been to Disney Tokyo? No, I'm just talking.
I have not seen picture. I'm not like a Disney person. All right, even though I live in Florida, like I'm not a Disney person.
But yeah, seafaring town,
But no, I get it.
coastal,
Yeah,
the
I like
kind of a
the
mermaidy beach.
I like the half submerged, half above water aesthetic. That sounds cool. So do you have any random name that you want to give us?
Hmm.
Are you also on Fantasy Name Generator?
Yes, that's why you hear the impossibly loud clicking of my mouse. So
We're
let's
both
see.
clicking through names.
Let's see. So here's my favorite part of fantasy name generators because over the years they have added so many kinds of generators, like one of the latest additions, Anansi names, which is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. What a hyper specific thing. So let's go place names. Let's see. Coral reef names. Yeah, let's click on that.
Okay.
Uh, that might not be useful. Hold on. Island names.
Okay. Riveting radio.
I know. Fantastic. Okay, hold on. Okay.
How about the tideless bay?
Ooh. Well, ooh. Hold on. What about Tideless Bay is good. What about the Rushing Cove?
Okay, that's a good
That one's
one.
good. Yeah, I like that. That sounds.
That's for non DMs or new DMs. This is how many dungeon masters come up with their places. Some of them put a lot of thought into how they name things. Others go into fantasy name generator and are like, oh, that sounds nice. Let me go with
And
that.
yeah, and one of the things is that like if you don't know specifically what it is that this place is going to be, you don't know any like backstory yet. Sometimes just like the name that you land on will then inspire
Yep.
the rest of it.
Which is what's going to happen right now. So, what type of society is in the Rushing Cove?
The Rushing Cove. All right. Uh
I'm thinking
so
trade town, kind of trade hub.
absolutely. Trade town, maybe a bit of tourism for the adventurous, definitely catering to, the seafaring folk who are in and out of town. And also there's a little bit of that novelty of it being a town that is partially submerged. Not quite
So,
scuba diving.
no, and I think the partially submerged part, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that. And if you've ever gone to Montana, you've actually seen a town underwater. But that it doesn't mean that that town under the water or that part of the town under the water is uninhabited because you have sea elves, you have tritons, you have turtles. So there could actually be like people there. society
Absolutely.
going on under the water, under the sea, as a certain crab would say. And that's kind of where the trade hub part comes in, because maybe in this world, this hypothetical world that we're creating, there are fully undersea towns that are just in the ocean that are pretty inaccessible to non-water breathers. So now this Russian Cove here acts as a meeting point between the land and the sea, where folks from both sides can meet.
Definitely.
So then, all right, so we've got Trade Town, trade hub town that is islandy Florida Keys type situation. So now, what is the political situation in this place? Because if it's a trade town, if it's a big old hub, then there's got to be many competing powers. But does it have, say, a single governor, or is there like a board of like guild merchants who kind of preside over the town? And is the law just based on the not meritocracy, just the money? Just like they're the ones who either built the town or bought it or whatever. And the struggle politically is that eventually one of them wants to own this town and has to eventually push out the others, but it can't be in like a bloody way. Yeah, if it's supposed to be a merchant type place, can't be a lot of violence there. So it's a constant struggle of like who's got the power of the people behind them, and who can use that to push out any other forces so that they become the one kind of head honcho, so they can become that governor.
There's also the option of an almost like collaborative government between the sort of the denizens of the part of the town that's underwater and the denizens of the land part of the town, the shore. So
the wet half and the dry half.
The wet half and the dry half. Yeah, that's much better put. So there's sort of like representatives from either side, and maybe there's tension.
Council.
Yeah, a council that represents the interests of all the different kind of people who call this town home.
All right. So we have a council of some kind with potentially competing interests. So let's come up with like, what's the name of, say, the head land guy, and what's his deal, and what's the name of the head water person, and what is their deal?
Let's see. We got mermaid names.
Okay, land guy, land person is going to be named Jeffrey, Captain Jeffrey. He is a privateer of some renown. Used to be sailing the seas, merchant and or possibly pirate type of guy, who's now put down a bit of roots in this town of the Russian Cove, and yeah, he's trying to grow his wealth by facilitating being the middleman, essentially, between the land and the sea.
And I guess the representative of the aquatic folk would be let's say a Triton. Named Cruz. No, I don't like Cruz. Nerio. That's the next name down. I like that one better.
Nerio. Okay.
Maybe Cruz is his last name. Nerio Cruz. Yeah?
And
no? That's a little too Jason Derulo. I don't know. It has the same energy.
It does. And what is Nerio's deal?
So Nerio seeks to just ensure the encroachment of the land dwellers is kept at bay, and ensure the control of the goods that are traded in and out is such that it doesn't cause the detriment of the very delicate biome of the aquatic living space.
Okay, so we've got Captain Jeffrey, who is the capitalist pioneer, and Nerio the Triton, who is just an environmentalist hippie. And
wow, way to reduce that.
I couldn't ask for a better like dichotomy of someone who actually cares about the environment and the impact that trade has on it, and someone who probably doesn't. And then they have to quote unquote work together until the party gets there and possibly kills one of them. And remember, this is all high level. We're just We're just painting with the very broadest of brushes, and then we can get in the actual campaign to say, does Nerio have some sort of dark past? Is Captain Jeffrey actually a good guy? Who knows? So the economics. So we've mentioned trade town. So is it just gold that is the bread and butter of this place, or is it the actual exchange of goods that you can't find on land and sea, and their incompatible natures?
I would say that
Mm-hmm.
this is the part I have the hardest part with is
Okay,
the economics part.
totally fine. I think both can exist where gold, well, let's just say we're setting in a medieval place, gold is kind of the standard. So if you're coming
It
here
is
sight
the gold
unseen,
standard.
yes, you can use gold and get what you need from the land or the sea. But because there are things that can only grow or exist on the land, and the same can be said about the sea, barter also exists, where a lot of merchants will trade things that may be common up here to the air breathers, but are very rare down there to the sea dwellers. Give rare things to the land dwellers in return. So that way, we can have kind of the part and parcel like general store or whatever that comes with the town, where the players can get their normal kind of adventuring gear, but also they have this kind of bartering system to say, if we find something that may be useful to some of these sea folk up here on land, we can give it to them, and we can barter passage to get things that maybe gold couldn't get us.
Definitely. There's also, like I said earlier, the sort of tourism aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be, just an aspect of it where it's just like the spectacle of,
How
this place could be unique in your world.
how about we get crazy with the tourism part and say the way that tourism works in this place is that there are giant fish. There are giant fish that either, and we can get real weird with it to say that land dwellers can either like ride on the backs of or be swallowed by, but they are,
Style.
yeah, they won't be digested. The fish are transparent, so they can exist in this tiny fish atmosphere, which may not smell great, but they can see the undersea world from the comfort of some giant fish guts.
It could also be that they have some sort of patented like gillyweed or like some sort of like patented magic that could
Mm-hmm.
allow for that sort of
Yeah,
movement, the freedom of movement between.
yeah, and that can go into the idea of the economy of this place kind of being unique, where yeah, there are all these ways to kind of experience the deep, or vice versa. The folks from the sea, maybe some of them can't breathe up on the land, so they have to have like reverse diving suits that are full of water that can keep them hydrated as they walk on land.
Yeah, are you Sandy Cheeks and Bikini Bottom, or are you Abe Sapien with
Yes,
the water helmet?
I was absolutely thinking Abe Sapien, and yeah, you can throw some wacky, strange aesthetic things that you can throw out to the party there. So then, who would be a person? We won't use Captain Jeffrey, or because even though he is kind of like want to make money guy, his thing is more political right now. So who would be like a big merchant guy or big merchant person that the party can go to if they need something?
So who runs like the fun store? Who
Yeah,
is the NPC who inevitably everybody's gonna be like, ah, this guy.
yeah, the guy who runs the store, but can also tell them about this kind of bartering system.
Let's say he's a turtle
Mm-hmm.
named Rip.
The turtle Rip. All right, Rip the turtle. And with the
His full
name
name is Riptide.
with a name like Rip, I assume you have to give him like a surfer voice. Like, dude,
100%. It's literally just the turtle from
it's the
Finding
turtle
Nemo.
from Finding Nemo. lot of righteous, a lot of bro, a lot of dude.
Yes, absolutely. It's very slow, very deep.
Very surfer guy. Gotta mellow out, man. Talks
He's
like
just
Bill and Ted.
absolutely.
Okay, I like Rip the Turtle. Now religion. So, what's the religious situation in this town of Russian Cove?
So there are
I'll let you take this one.
a few options that immediately come to mind. I usually tend to like to stay in the sort of like the fantasy D&D pantheon because I think they're fun. I think they're neat. So I could blatantly rip off Critical Role and just say like this is a polytheistic world, but in this town in particular, they have a huge connection to like some deity that has something to do with the ocean and seafaring and protecting sailors. So either a deity dedicated to travel or a deity dedicated to nature. So like a Melora or a Vandra, patron saint of halflings. Here's the where we can make it fun. The sort of the aquatic culture maybe has their own set of like different, and that's where you can like if this was a setting that I would be using, that is where I would say here's a chance to come up with like maybe 2 or 3 original new gods. That's where I would take that opportunity and say like here's a because like what so you okay, so this is where my like very nerdy part of my brain goes off. So these kinds of theologies develop out of a need for people to explain certain occurrences.
Explain the world.
Explain the world. And in these fantasy worlds, this is where you decide, are the gods real? Are they just constructs? Are they just, just people finding, trying to find ways to explain the world around them? Or are they real entities that, like, your players might even meet someday? So for an aquatic society, what gods would an aquatic society worship, or what are the things in a if you lived your whole life underwater, you're not going to worship the rain, right? The sun might not be something super important to you if you're like a deep ocean creature, right? If you're maybe the tide, the moon could be important because there's a lot of things underwater that are set off by the moon, like oh boy, here goes Lisa on a tangent.
Okay.
Coral reefs.
Go ahead.
Coral reefs. There are like certain cycles in coral reefs that are triggered by like the moon cycles. So if you are me and you have that esoteric knowledge, you would think, okay, so an aquatic society would probably have a deity dedicated to the moon. And the moon and the tides, maybe a deity for storms, maybe a deity for, I don't know, some big singular whale that gets spotted every 100 years could be considered a deity. Maybe there is some, like, legendary, like, giant 60-foot long mermaid that lives in the trenches that is worshipped as a god.
Just gonna mention the trenches or the kraken.
The kraken.
Yeah.
Is it worshipped as a god, or is it just a creature that they know about or is told about in legend? These are all things that you can think about.
Yeah. So we have a general like pantheon of gods that you can either choose from or make up. But then, how does the religiosity work in this town? Is there a priest that that the players could go to, or priestess, or I'm just using those words generally, some sort of cleric or religious person who I assume just because it would be hard for land folk to just go to a temple that would be in the water, that the whatever general temple of worship for like travelers would be above the water, even though it might contain both. It might contain reliquaries for land gods, but also sea gods. What would that What would that person be?
Hmm. You're literally asking me?
Yes, I'm literally asking you.
Oh
Who
boy.
else am I talking to here?
Them. Okay. So who would be the sort of representative? Do you want me to come up with a person?
Yeah, just a person.
Hmm.
This is the whole. This is as if we were doing this, as if we were going to use this setting, and setting up for those newer DMs. Have an NPC for every one of these points. We don't really have one for society, but I think Captain Jeffrey and Nerio kind of cover that as well as politics. Okay, so I like Aurelia. I don't even not even gonna give a last name, but Aurelia
Yeah,
the half
Aurelia is
what?
great.
Yeah, Aurelia the half
Sea
elf,
elf.
water
Yep.
elf, sea elf. That's what it's called. Who is kind of the priestess of this place. So travelers or denizens would come to her in times of spiritual need. Um, all right, and then M military. What is the military situation? Since it's a town, I assume it doesn't have, say, an army, but maybe there's a town guard, or is there,
Uh,
or are there multiple military factions, one for the land and one for the sea?
I would say yeah, there would be two, because as we're going along, it's kind of becoming almost like it's two towns for the price of one.
Mm-hmm.
But it just feels like it would make the most sense for it to be two. At least for me, it would make the most sense for it to be two separate factions, but like
Mm-hmm.
sort of trained under the same banner, if that makes sense.
If we're going for the split town aesthetic, and maybe the entire campaign is the party helping one or the other out, that shifts the power of balance. Maybe the followers of Captain Jeffrey, they're kind of like they're mercenaries, so they're strong, they're land dwellers, but they can potentially be bought. And then the sea dwellers, they have their own army. They don't have an army beneath this town, but they have an army within their like sea empire, and they have a contingent of them here beneath the water, and they adjudicate justice based on where a crime happens. If it happens on the land, then the land guys handle it. If it happens under the ocean, then the sea army handles it.
So it's like jurisdictions.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. Mercs versus Sea Army. Uh,
Yeah, so it's almost like a loose, almost militia-like kind
yes.
of
Militia is the good word for it.
for the land, something a little bit more easily corruptible, and something where they maybe have a stronger loyalty for the aquatic side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I can
And
agree to that.
and then the Merc captain, his name's gonna be. I want to go. Just Bob came to my mind, but um, let me try not Bob. Let me try someone else.
Not Bob.
Not Bob.
Not Bob is his name.
Not Bob. Not Bob. The gnome. The gnome mercenary. Not Bob. Sure, because we're just making this up. Not Bob the gnome. He's just the hardest gnome ever to be in charge of a bunch of mercs. And then who's like a sea person who would be in charge of the sea army.
Uh, let's go with a water genasi
Mm-hmm.
named. Let's see. Let's go with like Lorena.
All right, so and that's pretty much it. So we just created the entire setting. We've got the town or city or however big we want it to be, the Russian Cove. It's a trade hub and tourism hub of a half wet, half dry land. Um, yeah, we have a council that's made up of multiple members, but the two most notable ones that we've come up with are Captain Jeffrey and the Triton Nerio. Gold is kind of the standard here, but there is also a barter system in place, and the players can always go to the Turtle Rip to get either buy the things that they need or get a line on any sort of deals that could potentially be made between the dry half and the wet half. The religious situation, it's a pastiche of different deities, but they can go see the priestess Aurelia, and then the justice system is cleanly divided between dry half and wet half, between Not Bob the Gnome and his mercenaries, and the Water Genasi, Lorena, and the Sea Army.
Oh
Setting
man,
done.
with the military, I could even like imagine a sort of contrast between like the uniforms, the fact that like
Mm-hmm.
the aquatic side actually
Definitely.
have uniforms, and the land side, the dry side, they vaguely dress the same, but they're all sort of like not thrown together, but they have maybe a bit more individualism,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
in an army,
The,
in a police force, you might not be.
but they're a mercenary band, so they don't have the standards of, say, a police force.
Exactly.
And then from there, so DM's coming in, you've got this kind of general setting, you tell the players about it, and then you come up with a quest that they have to complete. So are they also mercenaries? Are the players also mercenaries coming in and they have to do a job and, say, find some hidden treasure? Or are they here on behalf of the sea folk to maybe dig up some dirt on Captain Jeffrey so that they can politically get him out of the way so that his ambition doesn't kind of ruin the environment? Um, and yeah, just kind of figure that out. You can figure it out yourself, or during like a session zero situation, talk about the settings with the players, and then come up with a kind of quest that they want to do. And remember,
Yeah,
this is all just the initial quest. It can always grow from there.
they can travel out. Yeah, with a setting, once you've created a setting like this and you talk to your players and you find out what kind of game, a setting like this can easily be used towards a campaign or a series of games, or an arc
Mm-hmm.
where it's monster of the week, or like there's one big monster, or you can even do like there's a religious zealots, or a political intrigue, uh, or something on a smaller scale that's like between individuals in town, or
Mm-hmm.
something on like a bit of
This
a wider scale, like the
this can be
political,
your entire campaign, or this could be the
a jumping
first
off point.
quest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that becomes something bigger. And let's actually do that right now. So I
This
have the
can be
note.
levels 1 through 5.
Yeah, I have some notes right here. So now let's take that same sperm method and let's do it for the entire world. And I think the easiest way to do that in the S for, say, the Society for the World is largely Earth versus sea, land versus sea, and maybe not a war, but there's a contentious relationship between how the surface dwellers interact with the sea folk, and we have a sea empire and we have multiple empires up on the land.
Yeah, maybe this is a land that is mostly made up of like, and maybe your whole campaign setting is like an archipelago,
Mm-hmm.
right? And maybe there's one large landmass and then a series of islands,
It's
that
a really watery campaign, but yeah.
really water world campaign.
So
But
so
that
the
can be
poli-
fun. I
yeah,
think.
so the politics could be the multiple, say, governors of the land masses of the islands themselves, um, in contention with the king of the sea.
Well, literally, just fucking Neptune.
Yeah, versus, I'm typing this out. King of the sea. Uh, and then the economy is just an extension of what we saw in the town, where that hub town of the Russian Cove is where these things meet, but it's just a larger scale of the land wants things that are in the ocean either wants or needs things that are from the land as well. So gold is again the standard, but there may be larger exchanges between, say, governments of the resources that one may be lacking for the resources of another.
I think one thing that you would have to think about in order to make this work is ask yourself the question, well, this is a world with magic, So
Mm-hmm.
why don't like the people on the land or the people in the water just do magic and go on land or go into the water? You know, the spell water breathing exists.
Sure,
So
but it doesn't last forever.
it doesn't last forever, and it might be something that you want to give consideration to because your players will inevitably
Mm-hmm.
ask.
You can make it so that water breathing exists, but maybe it's a social taboo to use it to go into an underwater city if you don't have the permission to go in there, or maybe
You
it's
gotta get a visa, you gotta go
you
through
gotta
the
get a
whole
visa.
passport process.
Exactly. Um,
And then they send it to you and it's not laminated, so it's not waterproof. You go into the water, it melts away, and they're like, "Let's see your visa.
uh, so
Get out."
I kind of want that to be a thing that just happens in this hypothetical campaign. The players get bilked by someone. Oh, here's our passports. Oh, they have dissolved. Oh no. No one did a check to check for like forgeries or something.
They get they get forged visas, yeah, and then they go down there and they're like, oh wait, no, the guy didn't laminate it before. Oh,
or
no.
or even worse, like work on like introduce a subtle level of say sea racism where the surface folk, they're all the players are all surface folk, they don't know how it works down there, so they get their water visa, which is just a seashell, and they go down thinking the seashell is the visa. They present it to the guards of the underwater town and then swiftly get thrown into jail for
Microaggressions.
for microaggressions. Oh man.
To Barbados with a bottle of rum, just like
Yeah.
stop it. Like,
We-
but stop it.
We're gonna throw some of this stuff into the games that we're running. Just things to
don't
screw
you
with the
fret.
players.
I've just made you do so much work for me. You don't even know it.
Well, let's finish it off. So for the world, religion, again, we can expand on the gods that we saw before to say the land folk have their own gods, and they could be kind of the Faerunian pantheon that you work with that's very familiar. And then the sea gods could be kind of the inverses of those, to say where Palor is a big sun god, the ocean dwellers have their own moon god because the moon controls the tides. They may worship the kraken itself, or yeah, make up a giant 60-foot mermaid, like Lisa said, and there's an entire city named after this mermaid.
It's the mom from Ponyo.
I was gonna go. I was gonna go Shirahoshi from One Piece, but you have no idea what that means.
I have no idea what that means.
She is literally like a 60-foot mermaid.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
And then the military expanding out to say the world is going to be probably a rather large navy. This is a very like water centric setting that we're setting up. That it's not going to be mercenaries and it's not going to really be privateers. They'll have like a giant navy, like marine ships, and that's going to be say the human army, and then the actual sea army is going to be, think like Aquaman, the movie situation where you've got giant crabs as modes of transportation, or they ride sharks
Oh my
through the
God.
water.
I'm just thinking about Namor.
You mean Namor?
Namor? Listen, you know those names that like, you've only ever read, those words you've only ever read on. Don't worry.
I never ever read Namor as Namor.
Don't worry about it.
But
It would be another half hour of this podcast for me to explain why I read it that way. So
Oh,
don't
boy.
worry about it.
but yeah, so that's the entire setting of this world of land versus water. Do you want to give it a name, Lisa?
Oh boy, let's give it a name. Let's give it a name. It's called Estraria.
Does that mean anything?
No, it's just
Okay.
the first thing that I saw on here.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, we just created a small setting, a large setting. If anyone wants to use this for their campaign, go ahead, or use it as a jumping off point. This is all just brain exercise for us. But it just goes to show we did about an hour, and we created the entire campaign setting. If we wanted to start off people running in this right away, just break it down with that sperm method: society, politics, economics, religion, military. Answer those 5 questions, then you answer pretty much everything you need to know about your campaign setting.
Now, you may be asking yourself, but world building. It's world building
Mm-hmm.
is a there's a lot of crossover with campaign like setting building. Um of course, because, as we went through this process, we have, built a done a bit of the world building already.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like dynamics and attitudes, aesthetics, uh but there is still like a lot to be figured out. The general suggestion with more nitty gritty world building is to do that in collaboration with your players.
Definitely.
I think we've talked about this before. I think we talked about this in the DM
We talked about
101
this in the
episode.
very first
And
episode, yeah.
yeah, and I think it's something that we keep coming back to. But tabletop D&D especially, but tabletop gaming is a collaborative effort. Think of yourselves as a writer's room, and you're throwing ideas out there. Let your players help you do world building as part of their, backstory, as part of their backstory building, or as part of, the game that they play.
Yeah.
Let them help you build the world. It's going to take a lot of weight off your shoulders. It's also going to get them engaged and involved, and make them want
Invested.
to play. Yeah, invested, and make them invested, make them want to keep playing.
Yeah.
It
Definitely.
It's fun.
Plus, a lot of the times the players would think of things that you may not think of, even if it's ideas for like aesthetically. How does the land town look versus the sea town? Yeah, they might come up with different ideas. They think, oh yeah, that was better than I was thinking. Let's go with that.
Absolutely. I think something that we all fall into is thinking that our own ideas are bad, but that's just, or like boring, but that's just because we're in our own heads. We know what our thoughts are. Your ideas are interesting to other people who are not in your brain and know exactly what's going to come out of your mouth. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid of throwing things out there, because more than likely you've thought of something that somebody else has not thought of, and that person has thought of something that you have not thought of, because we're all different people.
And aspiring DMs going into this situation, you're going to come up with this very broad campaign setting to begin with. But then, yeah, if you let your players in and you realize, oh, I like some things that they're saying better than what I had, feel free to change it. Go ahead and, you're not, this sperm method doesn't set everything into stone. This is all
Absolutely.
extremely fluid. And say you had an idea for the campaign, but you're like, you know what? The players want to do something else. So let me switch it up, but let me save this idea for another campaign. And just keep that in your notes, keep that in the back of your head. Usually you won't forget a big idea if you want to try it in a campaign. And it'll come back later on. So yeah, show it to the players, kind of tailor it to what they're looking for as players, and everyone's gonna have a better time. Because if you have an aesthetic or if you have a setup that the players aren't jiving with, then you're putting in a lot of work, but they may not be having fun, and that's just a bad time for both sides. Where you're stressing over creating this world, but they're like, eh.
Yeah. Another thing that I think, something to think about, something to keep in mind, is consider your references, consider what sort of influences are influencing you as you're building your world. Don't be afraid to, do some research into some
Steal.
other cultures. Steal. Do some robbery.
We've mentioned this before. Stealing is okay.
I don't know if you could tell from the last hour, but every other suggestion I gave came with some reference to some movie, some book, something. Some
Aquaman.
esoteric piece of knowledge. Namor.
One Piece.
But also think of, when you're doing these things, the tendency is to go for sort of like Western medieval quote unquote classic medieval, and that's not a bad thing. But don't be afraid to take suggestions from the more diverse members of your party, and look into and do research into mythology and sort of medieval aesthetics of other cultures, respectfully, of course.
Yes.
But don't be afraid to spice it up.
The whole aesthetic I was picturing for this town that we created is very like Port Royal, Pirates of the Caribbean type of setting.
Absolutely.
Which is a bit of a departure from the the classic medieval here.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to let them be playing like soca in the tavern,
Yes. Or as you put it out, put reggaeton in your
put reggaeton in your D&Ds, you cowards.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I love a good Irish pub jig or whatever.
We have one in this show.
Yeah. Thanks, Brendan, our local Irish pub jig making boy. But that can be. There's a place for that. There can be a place for that in your world, but don't be afraid to bring in other stuff. This is fantasy. You can do whatever you want.
And fantasy doesn't just mean medieval fantasy.
Yeah, it doesn't just mean medieval fantasy. It doesn't just mean European fantasy. You are, take the experiences of the world. There is an entire world out there, and when you're building out a world, it is just so much more interesting if, like, every town your players go into, there's a slightly different flavor, or if they cross a certain border, suddenly things are changing a little bit. The style of dress, the style of architecture, the style of music that you describe. If you are a DM who uses like background music, if you're playing in person, you have a little speaker on. That's something that you can think about for
set the mood,
immersion. Yeah.
Get them immersed in that world. Yeah, if you hear the actual background music or noise of the town you're in. I've even done things with players where I have them close their eyes and I have them smell certain things to like get the scent of the place that they're in. You can do weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
Smell a bottle of rum.
Oh. On a bad night, that can really ruin my day. I'm not gonna lie to you, but yeah, don't be afraid to pull from other references.
If it's gonna be cultural, like we say, do it respectfully.
Yeah, do your research. Talk to people. Open your eyes to the world. The world is a big place. Your world can be a big place. It can be also a very small place, but a very interesting place. That's also something to consider. I think that's part of the sperm method is in society is like the diversity. What kind of are the different races separated? Are they more
didn't even mention that.
together?
Yeah, that's right.
In this town that we've created, it makes sense that you would get a little bit of everything. It being a port town, lots of people pass through here. It's a very it only makes sense for it to be a diverse place. But maybe in this world, there is a place more inland, a little bit more secluded, somewhere that is a little bit more homogenous, where it's all humans, or it's all elves, or it's all centaurs, whatever.
Centaurs? I want to go to that town.
Yeah, that's a fun town. But it's something to think about, because that changes how you are going to, make your bullet point list of names and races and like jobs for your NPCs.
Just how you describe the place in general.
It's gonna change how you describe the place in general. Your players walk into a tavern. What do they see? There's, I don't know, an elf, an orc, and a goblin walk into a bar. That's a bad joke. But yeah, these are all considerations as far as like, flavor.
So that's pretty much it, folks. So there are lots of tools out there that help with setting creation, but honestly, all you need is a Word doc, a scrap of paper, and those 5 letters, and you can come up with your setting based on that. One tool I use, and I need to use a little more, is World Anvil. Not a plug for them because we're not being sponsored by them, but if y'all want to sponsor us,
Hey, World
like,
Anvil, please sponsor us.
absolutely. But it's a really that one's a really good tool to just say what's the hierarchy of my world, what's it called, where are the different countries in the countries, where are the cities in the cities, like how are they structured, all the stuff that we've been talking about in a
Yeah.
wiki like structure.
Yeah,
So
World Anvil is incredible. There's so many different like tools to use.
mhm.
So whatever way feels more natural for you to think about it, there's something on there that will help you achieve what
Yeah.
it is that you want to achieve.
Yeah, so that's one that both of us have used. But yeah, there are a bunch of tools that help you just organize your thoughts. Another one that uh, one of the guys from our gaming store uses isn't even like a gaming tool. I don't even know the name. I think it's like an Adobe one. You might know it, Lisa. It's like a storyboarding tool
Oh,
where
yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but like I said, it's just he organizes his thoughts in like a
Yeah,
movie
it's just
timeline.
called Adobe Story. It's just called
Yeah,
Story. You can also use Celtex if you're familiar with that. Celtex is a script writing program that you can also do.
exactly.
You can also use for like animation and stuff. So you can do like flashcards
Yeah,
and general. There are a million tools for a million things. You are
use
the only
which one
person who
works for you.
knows. Yeah, use exactly what works for you. However, whichever way your brain works, do what's going to help you engage with what it is that you're creating. And as we talked about at the top, you don't have to do it all in a sitting. You don't have to do it all before you start.
Yeah.
As an example, in the campaign that I am running, I have large swaths of the map that I have no idea what's in there. And I've done the sperm method. I have like some cities vaguely mapped out and the societal structure, the political structure, everything. But there are swaths of territory that I don't know exactly what's there. And so just this past session, our players are our party is heading on the next leg of their journey, leaving one town, going to another, and I rolled on fantasy name generators for a random highway name, and it gave me the perfumed highway, and I thought, ooh, that sounds cool. Like I like saying that. That's nice. Okay, why is it called that? Giant fields of flowers that should not be growing together, and they seem to be preternaturally growing side by side, and it's just the smell of perfume of the perfume of flowers is just heavy in the air. Oh, okay, nice. And then I spent a lot of time. One of my favorite tools for world building and session planning is Pinterest, because I have an
Definitely.
image. My brain works very well with images, and one of the things, if you spend a lot of time on Pinterest on like D&D, just going down like the D&D rabbit hole on Pinterest, there are many homebrew creatures, and one of my favorites that I always come across is the tiger lily, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a tiger that's also a lily, and it's supposed to be
Also the
this rare creature.
dandelion.
And the dandelion.
Same exact
Puns.
thing.
We love puns. There was also one called the Snapdragon
Oh.
that I didn't bring up because it's kind of intense, but maybe save it.
Interesting.
But so just from the name, but the point of the story is that just from rolling a random name, it inspired one thing, and then it led to another thing, and it led to a nice little encounter where Varun, his character Redston, had like got to essentially play with a magic laser pointer with this weird rare tiger. So
Yeah.
it created a nice little encounter and a little moment for them during this session.
One that scared the crap out of the rest of the players.
Absolutely.
Like, what is he
and
doing?
And now I know that in that section of the world, that's what's there, that's where you would find that kind of creature. If they need flowers for some reason for some quest, that's where they know that they can go.
Or another party later on in a different campaign, you've already got this world created, this little setting there. So if they need to go get flowers, you know where to point them.
Absolutely. And it's something that, like, I feel like if I had planned out what was there way back when I was still making the map, it wouldn't have been something as cool and creative as what I came up with in that moment.
It also helps that we're going to a place called Rose Hall, and we're traveling on the perfumed highway with like a billion flowers.
Yeah, it's creating like a theme. It feels very much like it's leading up to something. I don't know what it's leading up to. I'll tell you next week. But
I think we can do a session about like world building and how that kind of differs, getting into the nitty-gritty.
In the way that squares are rectangles, but all rectangles are squares, that's sort of the same relationship between world building and setting creation, at least for me. I think world building is an intrinsic part, or rather, setting creation is an intrinsic part of world building,
yes,
but not the other way around necessarily.
Because you need to do the setting first. You need to get the broad strokes out of the way, so then you know where to drill down and what details to focus on.
Exactly. And also it helps you figure out like what are the things that matter given the direction that the players are going in, what kind of campaign my players and I have agreed that we're going to be playing. It gives you that framework, that skeleton that then you could start putting meat on the bones for.
Yep. So I think we've said everything there is to say, at least from us, about setting creation.
Absolutely. I mean, we have so many opinions about so many things, but I think setting creation, there's only so much that you can say, which is, find a method that works for you. The spur method's a really great method. It's to the point. It gets what you need to get done out of the way, so that then you can get into the finer details.
Yeah. Did you want to have like a weird bartender with a strange accent, but how does he interact with the rest of the world? Who knows? Set up your world first. Set up your setting first.
It's a great way. It's a fantastic tool. Really underrated. Because when I was starting to make my setting, the hardest part is starting. So the spur method is great because it gives you somewhere to start. It gives you a step one.
Yeah. If for you, anyone who's gone through creative writing, it's your outline, and then you start filling it in, usually with the players. So those are our takeaways of just use some sort of outline method. Spur method is our preferred one. Write your ideas down somewhere, World Anvil or just a notebook, because you will forget a bunch of it. And don't overplan, don't underplan. You'll find your bullet points, your middle ground.
Yeah, you'll find your sweet spot as you figure out sort of the rhythm and the pace that your players are working at, and the pace that you prefer also to run your games at. There's some people who, like, in a session finish like a whole arc, and there's some people who take months to finish a single quest. So you find that rhythm, you find that pace, and within that you figure out how much and how little you need to prepare.
But I think we can wrap up this episode. So thanks for listening to episode 4 of Oops, All Dragons. The intro music should be...
These dragons.
The intro music should be coming in right about now.
Play us out there, Brendoni. Oops, All Dragons is a group effort. Our show is edited by Noel Hernandez, our theme was composed by Brendan Lyons, and our logo art is by Azif On Q. Links to more of their work and their social media will be in the show notes.